Some key concepts that we need to make sure everyone's familiar with before we move on. First thing is trial balloon. Oftentimes, politicians rely upon the media to launch what are called trial balloons. This can take the form of a leak, where a politician might give a so-called unauthorized release of information, which in effect is authorized. I'll clear that up in just a second. But imagine that a politician wants to figure out how will the public react to a particular policy proposal. I want to figure out how they would react without actually doing it. So what the politician does is he has usually a low-level staffer give some information to a reporter that Congressman X is considering introducing a bill that would do something, and then that'll get published, and then they will try to figure out or try to see what happens, usually with some polling, monitoring letters to the editor, town hall meetings, that sort of thing. And if everything goes according to plan and everyone likes it, then the policy is pursued. If everyone hates it or it's not as well received as a politician wants, then the politician denies any involvement in it. As I previously said, a leak is usually referred to as an unauthorized release of information. Sometimes low-level staffers, or for that matter high-level staffers, will give information to the media without permission to do so. This might be to advance their own political career, to undermine their boss, to undermine an opponent, but a leak typically is an unauthorized release of information, although sometimes these, what appears to be an unauthorized release of information may in fact be an authorized release of information so that the politician could launch a trial balloon. Soundbite. This is the idea or the concept that says that something has to be packaged into so many words that can be repeated or said readily in 30 seconds or less. So a politician might be asked, what is your position on foreign trade? And the politician will want to get some sort of statement down that he can repeat over and over again in 30 seconds or less. And increasingly we've seen the soundbite being shrunk down to 10 seconds. So now we have politicians discussing public policy in nothing more than 10-second sound bites. Press conference. A press conference is whenever a politician or a candidate comes out in front of the press corps and takes questions from them. Usually these can be questions about what the candidate's doing, what's going on newsworthy. If something's developed, they could ask the candidate or the politician, what do you intend to do about it? Do you support this, oppose that, and so on. We've seen a decline in the number of press conferences that happen right now because they're harder to control. And we see frequently politicians and candidates make statements but are reluctant to take questions from the press because they're not quite sure they can anticipate all the possible questions that might be asked. As previously mentioned, narrowcasting and echo chamber. Narrowcasting is the phenomenon where you have particular news outlets, for example, Fox and MSNBC, that don't attempt to appeal to everyone, but rather they attempt to appeal to a niche market and focus their programming solely on that market, trying to lock them in. This can lead to the echo chamber, where individuals do not hear from anyone other than those individuals who tend to agree with them. Finally, we have politics and the internet. Now, the internet can be used as a communication tool, an organization tool. This is pretty obvious. Email's been around a while. Social media's been around a while. So definitely you can communicate with your supporters or with the masses, and the internet makes that very easy to do and very cheap to do. You don't have to send out mass mailings. It can also be used as an organizing tool to conduct demonstrations, protests, rallies, and so forth at the grassroots level. So that's one way to get your supporters organized and to do so in a very cost-effective manner. The internet can also be a fundraising tool. Historically, Most political contributions or most of the contributions that politicians focused on were thousands of dollars because it was simply not cost effective to go after small donations. Now, if someone gave you a $25 donation, you'd take it with a smile, but you really didn't go after them because to get those $5, $10, $25 donations required a whole lot of money in terms of a mass mailing to go out and try to solicit that type of fundraising. But with the advent of the internet and combined with the cell phone, now you can readily accept $5, $10, $15, $20 contributions without very much cash outlay for the actual fundraising itself. So the internet, combined with the smartphone, can be viewed as a fundraising tool. One of the things that the internet is having a tendency to do is to democratize the media. Historically, the media was pretty closed. To publish a newspaper, you had to have a press, which could be very expensive. Or if you wanted to have a radio or TV station, that would require a federal license, which is expensive. And then, of course, all the hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment required to operate the studio. However, with the internet, pretty much anybody with a computer can begin to have a blog. In fact, Drudge Report actually started out as a blog and is now somewhat influential on the right side of the political spectrum. Citizen journalists are going all over the place, taking videos with cell phones and uploading those to platforms such as YouTube. So the ability to get information out is no longer, or the ability to get information to others is no longer being filtered through the lens of what is newsworthy by some sort of professional or news editor that might be motivated by a profit margin. The downside of this would be the decline or the absence of journalistic standards. Who's accountable? Is this information accurate? Just because a video is uploaded that accurately shows what took place, does it do so out of context? What happened 10 minutes beforehand and 15 minutes afterwards? So just because something might appear to be legitimate in terms of a video doesn't necessarily mean that it encompasses everything that occurred. So with the democratization of the media, the individual citizen now has more responsibility in trying to discern what is the truth and what is fiction and what is distortion. Social media. And while social media definitely could be used as a communication tool, politicians increasingly use social media as a way to directly communicate with the masses. We've seen that with the recent Clinton-Trump presidential campaign, where presidential candidate Trump, now President-elect Trump, has been directly communicating with citizens via his Twitter account, sometimes to the dismay of his staff, but definitely as a way to bypass traditional media outlets. So we'll have to wait and see how other politicians use this tool and if it actually has a tendency to impact the political process.